So it's very nice to meet you.
Hello.
And I'd like to know, first of all, going way back to when you first started production design, how did you get into it and what was the kind of process there? What inspired you?
Well, I didn't quite know what to do with my life, so I ran away to Paris with some friends, and I was living there, teaching English as a foreign language. And some of us were actors and directors, and we had this idea that we looked up what was on the exam syllabus for the English classes at university. We put on the plays, and that meant you were guaranteed an audience. So we did lots of Irish plays and English plays and some dance pieces. And I just thought, I was doing the sets, and I just thought, quite like this really. And I looked into studying design, and in Paris then there was a special university then for anyone who was working, and you could go and study all you wanted. So I studied in Paris. And then I came back to London and trained at the English National Opera, who ran a design course for a year.
And how old were you at this time?
20. I was a bit later because I'd worked in Paris and done languages, so I wasn't till 27. Sort of 10 years later than most people.
I think this is nice.
But I got there in the end.
Yeah, I think this is nice. Everyone thinks you have to know what you want to do early on, and the reality is a lot of people realise after trial and error.
I think so, and because I grew up in Edinburgh, and I was very influenced by the Edinburgh Festival and all the shows that came from abroad. And I thought I really want to do that, but my parents said do something sensible. So I went and studied languages at university. But everything's useful, because then I learned French, so I could live in France, and I learned German. And then somebody was looking for them to assist them in Germany on an opera. And because I spoke German, I got the job. And then he left the job because he got a better one. And the opera house in Germany said, well, you'll have to do it then. So there was me suddenly doing a huge opera in Germany without a clue. And then the director of that opera said, well, I'm starting a company in Switzerland, so do you want to come and be resident designer? So it's completely chance, my life. It's absolutely chance.
Yeah, I think sometimes you need to be thrown in at the deep end.
Yes, it is. And it's an awful lot of luck,
But there's obviously a lot of talent. I mean, I'm looking around here and I don't think a lot of people have the same eye that you do. And this is something I want to ask you about. What inspires you? What's your biggest inspiration when you're coming up with ideas?
Well, I mainly do, books and operas and dramatized versions of novels. So I've done a lot of Dickens. I mean, if you read a Dickens novel, the descriptions are absolutely minute. He does everything.
No punctuation.
It's sort of done for you in a way, but it's so well written that inspires you. And with opera, which is always very exotic, I always go to the country where it's set. Like if I do Carmen, I went to Seville, or Aida, and I went to Egypt, and went down the Nile. And when I did Tosca, I went to Rome. I mean, it's quite good fun, actually. Yeah,
this sounds great. A great reason to travel for.
I know. I mean, I do it on my own steam.
Yeah.
It's tax deductible. But like when I was doing Aida, for example, I went all the way down the Nile just looking for things. And right at the end, there was this massive statue lying half covered in sand, about 100 foot long. And I just kind of remembered that. So when we came to do it, we did it in the Albert Hall, which was a huge stage. So that was the opening of the opera. It was this massive statue buried, and then ropes came down and it sort of stood up like that.
Wow.
And everyone's going, if it's a book, then someone like Dickens, it's kind of all the world's in there. And then I've done a lot of operas, and then I was saying that I go to the country where that opera is set. And that particular place in Egypt where I found this big buried statue under the sand. So I decided to put that in our production at the Albert Hall. It'd start off with this, it was just sand, and then suddenly this huge statue rose out of the sand and flew off into the roof.
That is really amazing.
Nothing to do with the story, but it just kind of set the tone of the gods, and that was exciting.
Yeah.
And then I went to Seville when I was doing Carmen, and I was looking for the street where she lived, because there was a Carmen. And I found it was called the Street of the Serpent, and it was this sort of S shape. And that gave me the idea of the stage set, because in the Albert Hall, the audience sit in a circle, so you can't really have very much scenery because they won't see it. So I did this sort of big yin and yang S shape ramp coming down, and in one circle was the cigarette factory, and the other circle was the bull ring, and then they run around. So I think you have to, you go somewhere, and you just keep your eyes open, and hopefully something suggests itself. Really.
Yeah. Do you take pictures so that you remember once you?
I take hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and then. So that's for a thing like an opera where you don't want to do it naturalistically. You need a sort of symbolic stage set there. It's more fantasy. If you're doing television or film, it's more naturalistic, really. So you have to get that more right. And when I did Dickens' Great Expectations, the book gave you a lot. But I wandered around all the streets that were in the novel, and you find, although most of it's gone, the names are still there, but they're mainly insurance offices, sadly. But you still find, you just come across little things that give you clues. The thing about designing is you can't sit at home with a book. You've got to get out there and
see it.
See it where it was set, and you'll always find something just to set your production apart a little bit from the other ones.
From the mainstream, yeah.
Well,
Do you prefer TV or do you prefer plays and stage?
Well, whenever I'm doing a TV, I think, I'd love to go back to the theatre and do an opera. And then when I'm doing an opera, I think, I'd much rather do TV. Because, they're all...
Grass is always greener.
Well, at the moment, I'm doing this opera about the haunted dolls, Turn of the Screw, and I'm doing the TV Dangerous Liaisons, and it's a very different work process. With an opera or theatre, you get everything ready, and you design it a year in advance.
Wow!
And they build the set. But if you go to the theatre, there's probably only like 3 sets. But if you're doing something like a film of Dangerous Liaisons, Paris, 18th century, there might be 40 or 50 sets, you see.
Yeah.
That they're only in for one day. So I'm rushing around, putting up these sets, and then they're gone, and another one, and another one, and another one. And so you do it on the hoof.
Yeah.
So it's and it's exhausting, really.
Yeah. What's a typical day like for you? Obviously it varies so much, but just, you're waking up, how do you kind of go outside, get some fresh air, get some inspiration, or does it just depend on what you're working on?
Well, we have a long prep period, as we call it, about 3 to 4 months for Dangerous Liaison. So you travel all around. I've been doing this, went all around Czechoslovakia looking at castles and palaces and old houses, and then find the right ones for the story. And then someone negotiates the use of those places, and then you have to find the furniture and all the stuff to go into them. Because they might have stuff, but you're not allowed to sit on it, so you have to bring your own in. So I've just been to Paris last week, looking at all the old furniture stores and seeing what we can buy and send down send over to Czechoslovakia. So it takes a long time. And when you've got like 7 or 8 grand houses, including the Palace of Versailles, that's a lot of high-end stuff, you know.
Have you ever broken something? Have you ever broken one of the expensive props by accident?
Well, most of the time I break things, yes, because it's such a rush, you know, because you rush in with stuff and you rush out, but I'm not really allowed to pick things up myself, you know, because there's people who are better than I am, but I've walked backwards and knocked over a vase.
Yeah.
I've broken a huge 20-foot mirror.
That's a lot of bad luck.
It's both, yes. I've fallen onto a dinner service on a table.
Wow.
Shouldn't have asked me.
Going down memory lane.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to people who want to go into production design? Are there things you think that you wouldn't necessarily expect from doing this job when people hear about it that actually might take them by surprise?
Well, I say it's a bit like people who want theatre and film. It's got a glamorous air to it, of course, and I mean there is a sense of, you know, a bit of glamour here and there, but it's a very crowded market. That's the first thing. So a lot of people might train and then might not get a job, and then I think the first thing is to have a love of design, because what you've got to have is a kind of passion to get you through all the rejections and the difficulties. I mean, I occasionally meet people who just say, "Oh, I love the theatre," you know, and you think, "Well, what does that mean?"
Yeah.
Or "I like art." You know, what does that mean, really?
Yeah.
You've got to have a kind of burning passion to you know, be absolutely fascinated in periods, all the different periods, what people wore, what the furniture was like, and you've got to be a little bit of a nerd. You've got to love museums.
Yeah.
Love the V&A and just get excited about finding a Georgian teaspoon.
Yeah.
And and it's a huge buzz when you put it all together. But most people will go to art school, and there are specialist art schools like Wimbledon that does a 3-year course in stage design, and there are film schools, Beaconsfield, the National Film School, which does everything to do with film, including a design course. So obviously you can apply to those.
Yeah. It sounds like you need to have a good imagination, a good eye for even just to enjoy the kind of fantastical world.
It's a funny world, because half of it's kind of art and imagination, and then the other half is very, very, very technical. You know, all that side of it, and building sets. And some people are, you know, apparently it's different sides of your brain. And some people just love sitting at a drawing board all day and drawing technical drawings and building the sets. And other people go out and find beautiful old curtains and antiques and cushions and things. And that's why an art department is split into two. There's a sort of what we call construction, build everything, and then the other side is called set decoration.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a lot of research involved, and it sounds like you constantly learn new things, which I think is really exciting in a job.
That's what I enjoy about it, really. You know, I mean, it's not absolutely necessary to tour the world when you're doing a show, but for me, that's the buzz, and I love the research. I just love it, because, you know, you might be doing ancient Egypt or a Victorian brothel or a spaceship in the future, or the last series I did was secret underground London. So the nice thing is you don't get bored. You know, you've got a new subject every few months. Yeah.
And how closely do you work with everybody else who's, you know, collaborating on this? Is it quite, you're kind of to yourself and then you present it, or is it very much a collaboration?
It's funny, it's quite just me at the beginning, you know, and I'm wandering about wherever I wander. And then people start to join you, you know, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I have in TV, I have what we call an art department. So there's probably about 12, 15 people there who gradually join and start making the models and the drawings. And there's always someone having to budget it all the time. It's all about budget.
Yeah, but you get to avoid the budgeting side.
Nothing to do with the budget, not interested.
Yeah, so when you see something, are you able to sort of convince them that this is really important, we need to spend the money on this particular prop?
Yes. I mean, I don't always convince them, of course. There's people, whole teams just, because there's millions of pounds always involved. So there's lots of people who are just trying to keep the thing vaguely on track, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's the same with theatre, you know. I'll just boodle around for months thinking about it, and then do little sketches, and then you talk with the director.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've always got to get the director, you know, it's a collaboration. So, and then you do rough designs, rough models, and then somebody costs that and think, okay, go ahead, and you finish it off and you make it. And, but the nice periods really when I'm just thinking about it, you know, and reading books or going to places and discovering things, and then it becomes more and more social, if you like.
Yeah.
And you know, you've seen a film crew, there's like 100 people standing there.
Yeah.
I've still no idea who any of them are.
Yeah. You stick to what you know, though.
Because I work ahead of a film unit. I'll be there the day before, getting the set ready.
So you're not there until the final wrap. You don't go in every day and kind of stay.
No, I'm there. Every time there's a new set they arrive at, I'll have been there for a few days before getting it ready. But when they arrive, the whole circus arrives. I disappear and hand it over to them.
Yeah. Have you ever changed that in that time, and you've watched it and thought, this isn't what I wanted?
Yes, it's a bit frustrating. I do have a representative on set called the standby art director, and they're supposed to make sure that what I wanted is messed around with. But it's difficult because you've got the cameraman and the director, and everybody considers they're more important than the other one. So,
how annoyed would you have been if you were working Game of Thrones when that Starbucks cup was left in the scene?
Well, I'm fairly annoyed, really. I can't believe it. No one noticed it. That's the weird thing.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
And you know, I'm very tyrannical about, because I get a set all nice and perfect, and then the crew arrives, and they've all got bags and if I see coffee cups and things, I pick them up and throw them out the window.
That's good.
Because it's
ruthless.
Absolutely not allowed to have anything on set that's liquid but people still do it. And then often the director brings his coffee on because he's got high status. And that means that then no one else worries about the rules, you see. So it's all a bit of, but generally I run away and I don't want to know what they're doing to it.
Yeah, you leave it and then just watch it afterwards. What's one show or one film that you've watched that you wish you'd been a part of just because you thought the set design would have been really fun to work on or really interesting?
What a different one than what I did. No, I've got to say something, haven't I? I loved the Grand Budapest Hotel. I thought that was gorgeous.
All of Wes Anderson's
I love all Wes Anderson stuff because they're naturalistic with a twist, and I think that's lovely.
And the symmetry is amazing as well. You have to think of every.
It's extraordinary, and I mean that's a film that's taken. Often you don't have much planning time, you know, especially with TV. It's all a bit rushed. And you don't have a lot of conversations with the cameraman. You know, in the old days, when you look at all the Hollywood movies, they've got all these books of storyboards, and every single shot is drawn out, you know, and planned, which can happen in big movies, but generally, it's all kind of. Generally, you design more than you think they might need. You design everything because you don't know where the camera's going to point. So you do a 360. And that can be a little bit frustrating. If you say I've designed this whole room and it ends up with a very tight shot on you and me, you don't see anything. But I say to my team, I said, look, the fun is making it. So don't worry if no one sees it.
Yeah, and I think and don't you think it helps the actors on set when they feel like they're actually in this, even if you don't see it, it's still adding to their performance. Totally,
yes. And you get some directors like Mike Lee who insists that a house is, the drawers have got letters in them and the fridge has got food in it, even if you don't open it. I remember Ewan McGregor saying about Star Wars that he just didn't know if he could stand it anymore because he's just standing inside a blue room.
Oh, right. Wow.
With a lightsaber. There's nothing, everything is put in afterwards.
Yeah, that must be hard. Who's your favourite director that you've worked with? Should I ask that?
No, you shouldn't really, because some of them might see this.
Favourites, yeah.
But I did like the director of this Great Expectations. It's one of the things I enjoyed most doing. Brian Evans, and he said I don't really. I haven't done period before. He said, so I'm good with actors. You do the sets, and I'm not going to interfere. Just tell me if you haven't got enough money.
Yeah.
So that was quite good.
That's good because it gives you that free range to just enjoy yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And how did you feel about CGI?
Well, I have a double feeling because it does mean that you're not clambering along the roofs taking off TV aerials anymore. You just generally you can build a set to above head height. And then the rest of it can all be CGI, as long as there's nothing moving in front of it. And that means you can do bigger sets, and it's just a little bit frustrating when you're building a set and the actors come on. And everything sort of stops there.
Yeah.
And you've got to imagine this amazing skyline. I did a series called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and we had to do the middle of London with Westminster and everything. And we did it in a stable yard near Leeds.
Wow.
We basically had a cobbled street and a bit of stone. So there were all these people acting away in the King and Parliament arriving. And then when you see it, you see everything. You see the Thames and Westminster, but
it's crazy.
For them, you don't. So it's you look at Cecil B. DeMille movies and the whole thing's built. Ancient Egypt's built, Rome's built, and they've got like 100,000 extras.
Yeah.
And now even the people aren't real.
No, I didn't know that.
It's called crowd replication. So you film maybe 100 people, but then you just multiply it digitally, so you've got thousands and thousands of people all moving around. So obviously, and then in DeMille's day, people weren't paid so much and things were cheaper, and he could do that. So it's a little bit frustrating sometimes because you'd like to build the whole thing, but then on the other hand, you do end up on screen with a more amazing set.
Yeah.
What I don't like is, when you have sort of monster films and all that, and the thing isn't real.
Yeah.
And you've got someone going, I'm running down the street, and then there's this dragon ripping up
Yes,
the house.
I also hate these films as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I really do. Yeah.
I mean, because I know it's not real, and I can't really get into it.
Exactly, it's so hard to engage with or feel anything for.
Yeah, and all these endless, Hollywood versions of the fairy tales, Hansel and Gretel, and they're all sort of. I just they leave me cold, to be honest. So I don't mind doing a historical drama.
Yeah.
Where I can't afford to build the whole of London in the 18th century because it's still real. It ends up looking real. But I don't really, I can't really get into those, dragony things running down the street and all that.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously Temple was amazing. What inspired you, especially with all the underground scenes and things?
Well, that was interesting because it was a contemporary thing, which I don't normally do. But I quite like this underground world, and I was thinking of the Phantom of the Opera a bit. When he lived underneath the Paris Opera, or Frankenstein's laboratory was the two things in my mind. And he was, he was a man who started off with good intentions and got sucked into a bit of a vortex of dodgy dealings, so it gets darker and darker. So I wanted somewhere a little bit gothic. And having said that, it's set in a tube station. And but we were visiting, Temple Tube Station, where it's set. And we were just looking for a staircase, and the lady said, there's a disused staircase around the corner under the Strand, so I'll show it to you. So we said, oh, that's a good staircase. And then she said, I'll just nip down to the bottom. And I found, I didn't discover it, it's always there. But there was the whole tube station built in 1900, platforms and tunnels that someone had speculated on, and it was never finished. So you've got this rough sort of ghost version of the tube.
Wow.
And it's 7 floors down and no lift. So, so I said, it must film down there.
That sounds scary, yeah.
Couldn't be down well. It was cool.
Especially health and safety, I'm sure.
Well, it was a bit tricky, and you have to have defibrillators placed up the stairs. But so what we did was we filmed a bit of that for real, and then but I replicated it in a studio, really. So we took casts of the walls to get the texture right, plastic casts, and then replicated that. And the old sort of rusty ventilation shaft we turned into the operating theatre and made all these little tunnels. And that was great fun.
Yeah.
Then we had a little hydroponic garden we built.
How long did this whole process take?
Well, it was about 4 months getting it ready. And it was a very big set. It went all over the place. We couldn't get a studio. We actually had to go into the old sugar puff factory in Southall, which was closing down, and use that.
Yeah.
They're doing a second series now. They're having to find somewhere to put that in again, because it's continuing the further adventures of Temple.
Okay, are you involved in that?
No, I'm going on to Prague because my set's there, so they can have it.
Yeah.
So, but they don't really need me to be there. So that's sitting there. And so I'm going back into history again now.
Yeah. So tell me about the up and coming projects you've got.
Well, Dangerous Liaison was the famous film of the 80s with Malkovich and Glenn Close, based on an 18th century French novel about these two. He's a gigolo and she's a courtesan. They're sort of in love with each other, but they're rising up society by having strategic liaisons that advance them socially. So they're quite kind of hard-nosed and they sort of play games with each other. So it's a bit of a cat and mouse. It's quite a cruel story and they give each other challenges to seduce that person or that person. And the film's amazing actually. So it's quite a tall order. But the writer has developed it hugely. So we start off when they're practically children and follow them up to the period that people know from the novel. And then it goes beyond that when it goes into the French Revolution, and it goes through that into the Napoleonic time. And it's got lots of subplots going sideways. there's a lot about what was happening scientifically, mesmerism and electricity coming in, and it's a big epic sweep really of the 18th century, and it could last for 5 years if it goes well.
Wow, and this sounds like obviously there's different periods involved. It's going to be a big project for you.
Yes, if I stay with it, I'm contracted for the first lot, which is 8 hours of TV.
Yeah.
So that'll take me up to the autumn, and then I come back and do my opera about the haunted nursery.
So I'm looking around and there's lots of absolutely terrifying dolls. I don't think I could sleep here at night because, there's about, how many dolls would you say you have in here?
There's 30 or 40, I think, probably. And some of them are old, spooky dolls I found, and then others, to be honest, I've been going around the charity shops of Brighton and picking up a total normal Cindy doll, and then you just kind of paint its face white, pull its eye out, and back comb its hair. So
this is what you're doing in your spare time. If anyone's wondering, you're just back combing the hair of dolls and pulling their eyes out.
Yes, and blacking up their teeth.
Wow.
But dolls are kind of basically quite scary anyway, so you don't have to do too much to them. And this story it's a Henry James story called The Turn of the Screw, and it's about a governess who comes to bring up these 2 children, and the children are possessed by the ghost of the previous governess, so slightly upsetting for her. And they're kind of talking through them, and then what we've done in this production is have all these dolls sitting around and then the ghosts are actually the dolls, so they suddenly get up and come towards you.
Oh wow!
It's an opera by Benjamin Britten called The Turn of the Screw, and it opens in Hackney Empire next October.
Okay, so you can see all of these terrifying dolls next October.
Yes.
And what's your favourite genre to work in? Do you like horror? Do you like period drama?
I don't like modern horror. I'm not good in blood and guts and slasher stuff. I like old horror, like film noir. I love film noir actually.
Do you like Hitchcock?
Yeah, Hitchcock and you don't really know who made all these films. Like the Humphrey Bogarts and Maltese Falcon. I do like black and white films actually over colour, if I'm being honest.
Oh, really?
I think that it's a bit like the old black and white photographs. They're so crisp and atmospheric. So I like. It's not really horror. It's mystery and old ghost stories I like.
Yeah.
And I'm a wee bit, a wee bit in the past, really.
And is there one sort of goal that you have in your career that you haven't ticked off? Is there something that you've sort of got in your mind that you'd like to do at some point?
Well, operatically, I'd like to do the Wagner's Ring Cycle, which is a 4-day event about the beginning and end of the world.
Okay.
That's quite big.
Just a small project then.
Yep. And that starts when the whole world is water and you're under the water, and then the earth begins, and it ends up with up in the heavens with the gods, and the whole earth goes on fire and everything perishes. Scenically, it's a big challenge.
Yeah, that would be a massive challenge, wouldn't it? It sounds like it would be a lot of fun though as well.
Yes, it would, but nobody's asked me yet.
Yeah. And how good are charity shops for finding props? Because obviously I think a lot of people probably set themselves up thinking they have to go to antique places and all these special places, but are charity shops good for you?
Yes, they are. They are actually. And here there's a lot of car boot sales. Brighton is kind of car boot city, there's just a big car park here every Sunday. There's hundreds of people with stalls and antique fairs, in race courses and things like that. But I'm a charity shop because you've no idea what someone's going to give.
Yeah.
And if you go to Kensington or Mayfair, to the charity shop, you're going to get very high class things.
Yeah.
So I like that. Yeah. I like doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's one piece of advice you'd give to aspiring production designers then? What's your one kind of thing?
Well, I think mentally you have to say this is all I can do in life, and I have to do it really.
Yeah. I think that's good. I actually think that's actually a good way to look at anything you want to do in life. Really, if you want to dedicate.
I think so. I mean, don't go into it because you like the theatre, or you like first nights, or you like celebrities, because you're not part of that. Someone else is, so you'll never experience it.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a struggle, but most jobs are a struggle these days, to be totally honest. I think it's about having the passion. I think really, and teamwork. God, you have to be a bit of a psychiatrist to work with. Everybody's a bit kind of highly strung and neurotic in the entertainment industry, so you have to have a balance. Yeah.
Do you stay out of the partying side of it?
Oh well, these days, yes. I'm too exhausted.
Well, I'm really excited to see everything you've got coming up, and thank you so much for having us in your beautiful house today.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.